Hi, and welcome to HDFS 101, Lifespan Development. I'm Dr. Ashley Harvey. I'm the course coordinator for this class. I'm not the instructor, so I won't be seeing you in class, but I'm helping to get this class set up, and I'll orient you to the class. And so the purpose of this video is to cover some of the course content or course information so that instructors don't need to spend so much time on it in class. I do usually teach this class in the fall and spring semesters, so you'll hear me talking as if I'm going to be your teacher, even though in this case I'm only your course coordinator. So this is a face-to-face class. You're meeting Monday through Thursday for 8 weeks. However, the exams are given online on Thursdays and Fridays. All assignments except the 4 major exams are open now, so you can work ahead if you'd like. So this is a lifespan development class, basically birth to death. So we're going to start with some theories related to human development, some research methods. We'll move into genetics, prenatal development, birth, infancy, toddlerhood, and early childhood, middle childhood, or the elementary school years, adolescence, emerging adulthood, which is the age of most traditional college students, young adulthood, middle adulthood, and then late adulthood. Once we get into infancy, at every developmental stage, we're going to talk about it in 3 different ways: physical, cognitive, and social and emotional development. So physically, we're going to be talking about how we move, which is called motor development. We'll be talking about brain development, kind of the use of our senses, for example. And then we'll be talking about cognitive development in terms of language development or how we think, and how that develops and changes over time. And then we'll be talking about social and emotional development, our interactions with others, whether that's family or peers, and then also kind of our emotional development and how our emotions, the quality, our experience of our emotions also shifts over time. This is my favorite textbook of all time for 2 different reasons. One is it's written from a global perspective, so it includes cultures around the world. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about individualistic versus collectivist cultures and developing and developed countries. And the second reason is that Jeffrey Jensen Arnett, the lead author, is one of the world's experts on emerging adulthood, which is kind of the age of traditionally aged college students. And so I love that when you get to that chapter, you're reading, from one of the main experts on that. The textbook is going to be, you're going to have electronic access to that, and it comes included in Canvas as part of your course. The bookstore is going to charge you for that, a couple of weeks into the semester. And so I've got more details about the current price of that in the syllabus. So it comes automatically. You would actually have to opt out in order to not pay for it. I would not, however, recommend opting out because we are using the My Virtual Child and adult simulations that come with the textbook. Those are part of our major assignments, so you need to have access to those electronically in order to complete the assignments in this class. So as I mentioned, the textbook is included in your course registration. You don't purchase it separately. And so how you access it, it's electronic. You come into the Canvas class, you click on the Revel link on the home page or modules on the left sidebar. You can view the student registration guide, and then you want to click on Revel Launch and get it set up. It varies depending on whether or not you have a Pearson account. But please do us a favor and enter your first and last name exactly as they appear in Canvas so that we can make sure when we're checking to see if you've completed the simulations that the names are matching up. Again, if you're getting any questions about paying, you should not pay because you're going to be charged through your student account after the drop add period has passed for this class. So included in our textbook package, Pearson Revel, are the My Virtual Life simulations. There's the My Virtual Child and then the My Virtual Life Adult. These are associated with our major assignments in this class. They're going to be required. So in the first simulation, you're going to have a baby and raise it until age 18. And in the second simulation, you're going to raise yourself from age 18 into late adulthood. You don't actually die at the end. All right, so if you're having issues with Revel, and of course troubleshooting can be challenging, we do have troubleshooting tips posted on Canvas. The very first one is to make sure you've unblocked your pop-ups. The next one, and most important one, is to use Chrome. A very common fix is to clear your browser's cache or cookies, and you can always Google how to do that for the browser that you're using. If you're trying to figure out if it's Revel or just you, then you can try a different computer. You can try an on-campus computer. There are laptops available for checkout under student resources. And then, of course, you could contact me or Pearson Tech Support. And there's instructions on Canvas for how to do that. Okay, so all of my lectures are also recorded and available on Canvas. This is useful if you have to miss class, or I think it's helpful for exam preparation because the exams are focused on what is covered in lecture and where it overlaps with the textbook. So I always recommend that you listen to the lecture and then read the corresponding sections in the textbook that are related to that content. We are using a test bank that's from the publisher, and so sometimes the way the questions are written are more about what's in the textbook than exactly how I said things in class. Okay, but anyway, the lecture is the biggest basis for exam preparation, and yet there's a lot to know, but I don't want you to have to know every single thing in the textbook, and so sometimes we don't get to everything in the lecture during our class meeting times, and it needs to be listened to asynchronously because it's things I think you should know for your future or for the exam. So I may ask you to listen to parts of these recorded lectures at this first part before we start class, like I'll jump in kind of midway through, or we might not finish in class and you'll listen to the rest of it asynchronously. We'll always be sending out announcements so that you know what you need to listen to asynchronously. And again, that material is on the exams as well, so you don't want to shortchange it. So we will generally use the Canvas announcement function that gets sent to your email when we're communicating with you as a class, or directly we will just send an email to you through your CSU email or through your Canvas inbox. When you're emailing us, do us a favor and check Canvas announcements or Canvas first to see if you can find the answer to your question. If not, when you email us, go ahead and put the course name or course subject number and give your full name so that we know, because the TAs and I are often responsible for multiple classes, so that way we'll know right away which class you're talking about. And give us 24 to 48 hours, not including weekends. Now, we're never going to ignore an email from you, so if you don't hear from us, just send an email again or reach out to me if you reached out to the TA team. If you have questions about an assignment that you submitted, we ask that you email us rather than leaving a comment in the Dropbox. We get so many comments in the Dropbox, it's hard for us to figure out which ones are important and which ones, aren't. Okay. I do want to give you a heads up that I regularly have to file reports with the Student Resolution Center or Student Conduct regarding plagiarism, even if it's unintentional. And so here's the typical reasons. Most recently, it's because people were using an AI platform to write their paper. However, when I meet with them to talk about it, they typically say they just used it to brainstorm or get ideas. So what I would tell you is I think you better avoid it. I wish I could tell you you could use AI to guide it, but I think it's hard for people to use AI without taking too much from it, and then they're not doing their own thinking and their own writing. Similarly, if you are using the sample paper too closely, if you're even if you're putting it in your own words, if you're just kind of taking the ideas from the sample paper or another student's paper, if you take anything word for word from any source, not only do you have to cite it to give credit, but you also have to use quotation marks to let us know that you're taking more than 3 words from a sentence, for example. There's a lot of great resources, as you know, on campus, and I've got these linked up under the homepage on a link called Resources. We'll be going over some of the library guides that are relevant to this class, but you can also walk into the library and get support for research project, but also just technical support for your laptop or if you're struggling with iClicker. We have, of course, the Student Disability Center, which is for anyone who has a diagnosis, mental health diagnosis, learning disorder, physical challenge, concussion, right? Anything like that, either short or long term, that you need to go through the Student Disability Center, and they often have a kind of a long appointment wait time, so you don't want to wait for that. Student case management, which is great for letting you know, just kind of helping you figure out where to get going for resources. And they also provide some absence notifications or verifications in a kind of some limited circumstances. Religious accommodations are available. The Survivor Advocacy and Feminist Education Center, or the SAFE Center, formerly the Women and Gender Advocacy Center, is a great resource. And we have a lot of resources under Rams Against Hunger, food pantries, and also meal swipe programs. I'd encourage you to look at the syllabus just to make sure that this is still the correct grading summary since I recorded this. But here's an overview, and we're going to go over into all of these assignments in more detail. The takeaways that you can see from this grading summary are that there's a lot to do in this class, and so that can be challenging, but it also means that there's not one thing that's going to make or break your grade, and you can also see that we have a variety of extra credit points too.
Okay, so here's my grading scale. There isn't a set grading scale at CSU, so everybody gets to make up their own. One thing that I do want to tell you is that I do give A pluses. So that's one reason to do the extra credit, even if you've already got an A, is because I will, when I submit grades, kind of go through an extra step to turn your A into an A plus. Canvas won't show an A plus, but I will submit that into the grading system. And it doesn't change your GPA, but it's pretty cool to see A pluses on your transcript.
So the policy here just states that once the grades are posted and visible to you, you have a week to let us know that something's not right, that you didn't get the points, or we made an error. We just don't want to be getting a bunch of emails at the end of the semester, about people kind of arguing for points, especially once grades are posted and people are trying to kind of get to a higher score. We don't want people going back and trying to come up with points from early assignments. So just make sure you stay on top of it, check your rubrics and your grades, and make sure everything's okay as we go. I know it's really hard to keep track of all instructors' different policies around late assignments. Mine are that you can submit anything late in this class with the exception of the major exams and extra credit surveys with a 5% per day deduction, and there's no end date on that, although when you're doing the math after 20 days at 5% per day, there's no points left to deduct, so there's no point in submitting anything that's more than 20 days late. The hard deadline is the Sunday of the last week of class, or the Sunday before finals week if it's a 16-week semester, and that's the last day to submit all assignments with or without documentation. In order to remove your late penalties, I will need documentation from one of these CSU sources: the Student Case Management Center, the Student Disability Center, Religious Accommodations, or the SAFE Center, formerly known as the Women and Gender Advocacy Center. I do have a late policies link on the course homepage that details all this, and I'll often refer students back there rather than have to try to explain all of this in an email. Okay, so what can you expect in terms of workload? So at CSU, a 3-credit class can be anywhere between actually 96 hours of work or 144 hours of work, and this includes any time spent coming to class. I'm going to estimate that the time for this class is around 100 hours. Some people are going to do that a lot more quickly. Some people are going to need more time. So if you're taking this class in a 4-week format, that's 20 to 30 hours per week. If you're taking it in an 8-week format, that's 12 to 15 hours per week. And if you're taking it in a 16-week format, that's 6 to 8 hours per week. I teach this class both in person and online, so you're getting kind of the exact same amount of work. And so it should be the equivalent amount of time online and face-to-face. Okay, so we're going to use iClicker Cloud, which you can access through your phone or your laptop to answer questions in class. And to set up your iClicker account, there's information on Canvas how to do that. You want to sign in with your CSU information. We will practice immediately, and we'll start counting the points within a couple of days into the very first week. It does require you to be in class. You have to have your locations settings enabled. And we will set it up so that you can miss some of the questions and still get full credit. If you weren't able to answer some of the questions, then you'll want to check in with the instructor after the class to make sure that you're getting all of your points. We are going to drop about 3 classes worth of iClicker, and then we'll turn those points into extra credit if you have them at the end of the semester. If you have documentation, typically from the Student Disability Center or Student Case Management, like for example for bereavement leave or surgery, then you can complete our iClicker makeup assignment to get the iClicker points. Otherwise, know that if you have to miss class, even if it's a good reason, if it's not something that you have CSU documentation for, then you can't make up the iClicker points. All right, we have a handful of online class participation assignments. These may or may not be distributed evenly depending upon the course format that you're in. The assignments and the rubrics requirements for each one vary a little bit, and some of these, depending upon your format, maybe all, are discussions with the possibility of an extra credit reply. All right, so we will have 4 online exams, about 1 every other week. We will drop your lowest one. Each one consists of 50 multiple choice questions and covers about 3 chapters. There is not a cumulative final. These are proctored online using a webcam. And so you'll have to get that set up, and there are laptops available on campus, especially in Morgan Library, for checkout that have webcams should you need it. You're allowed 1 double-sided handwritten notes page, and you generally have a little over 24 hours to take it online. You get 60 minutes to complete it and 1 attempt. If you have extended time from the Student Disability Center, then the GTA is going to enter that and send you an email to confirm. We do have study guides available, which I'll say more about, and there's an exam link on the course homepage that gives you more information. In order to prepare for the first exam, you'll actually take pre-exam 1 just to get you used to the webcam and the proctoring software, and it's just 10 questions and 10 points. There are study guides available for the exams in this class. They're located under the exams link on the home page. I occasionally change these as we move through the semester, and I add or delete or revise material. These are a copy and paste of the PowerPoint slides, so they are very long, but they do include some information on what is more likely to be emphasized on the exam and what are the things that you don't need to know for the exam. I would encourage you to consider using these Word documents as a tool to take notes on the lectures. We do have a required APA and plagiarism quiz in this class. You're allowed to take it 3 times, and the system will record your highest score. It's open book, and you can use the materials posted on Canvas. It's based on the HDFS APA PowerPoint. There's 20 questions on each attempt. However, there's about 45 questions in the bank. So if you'd like to see all the questions and make sure that you're on track for APA and plagiarism policies, then you'll want to take it a couple of times. Okay, here's the first of your major assignments. Again, this is through Pearson Revel, and you're going to complete the My Virtual Child simulation. You only need to answer the multiple choice. You don't need to answer the short answer in the simulation. We have a short answer form available for you in the Canvas Dropbox that we're going to ask you to complete. So you do the simulation multiple choice and then our short answer. This is long. We estimate that this amount of work is about 15 hours just to complete the simulation and the short answer. And you can check Canvas for the due dates. It's usually due in the second half of the course. And then you're going to do the same thing for the My Virtual Life adult simulation, where you raise yourself from age 18 into late adulthood. You're going to do the multiple choice questions in the simulation, the short answers in our form in the Canvas Dropbox. This luckily is shorter. The simulation is about 6 hours, and including answering our questions. So we have 2 papers in this class, and you get to choose one. Or you could do them both, but either way we drop your lowest score. So you could do the first one and then see how you do and then decide whether or not you want to do the second one, or you could just miss the first one and only do the second one. So each one is 2.5 pages. They have the exact same requirements. They are just on different simulations with different prompts. So the My Virtual Child paper is on that simulation and due around mid-semester, and then the My Virtual Life Adult is on that simulation and is due more near the end of the semester. In-depth guidelines and samples are available on Canvas. Again, it's based on the My Virtual Child or the My Virtual Life simulations, which you'll be learning more about. You have the choice of one of 3 prompts. You'll be incorporating class material into that lecture or textbook, and you'll also be using a journal article that we help you find. We have some library guides for how to find that. We encourage you to use PsycInfo. And we have a journal pre-check assignment due a couple of weeks beforehand where you submit a PDF, not a link, but a PDF, the full article, so that we can look at it and make sure you're on the right track so you don't lose points on the bigger paper. And again, we're going to drop both your lowest paper and your journal article pre-check because there's 2 of them, 1 for each paper. So we drop the lowest score for both. So my goal is to create a course in which all students can find themselves and also find the populations that they're going to be serving. As you might imagine, this type of content related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice is always changing. And I'm doing my best to stay on top of it, but sometimes I'm inaccurate, I'm outdated, and I know you'll let me know. I appreciate that. So feel free to reach out to me if something doesn't sit well with you. Send me an email, come to office hours. And if you're not comfortable coming to me, then there are a couple of other avenues through my department head or the bias reporting forum, and those links are available in the course syllabus. Okay, so these are the CSU principles of community. I'm going to do my best to hold myself to these, and you can let me know if you think I'm failing, and I'll also expect this of students as well. Okay, great job making it to the end of the welcome PowerPoint. We'll be clarifying things as we move through the course, but feel free to email me with any questions.